Okay, great. So, good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, the 13th of March. Welcome to the Mar Vista Virtual Town Hall hosted by Councilwoman Tracy Park. My name is Matt Halden, and I'm going to be our moderator this evening. We have a couple of brief presentations, and then we're really just going to open the floor up to everyone. What I do want to say very quickly, though, is when we open up the questioning portion of the call, we're going to be restricting everyone's time to a minute. That way we have chance to hear from everybody. So you will hear me jump in. I just, full disclosure, you will hear me jump in and say, thank you very much for your comment. I will go ahead and mute you after that, just so you guys know ahead of time. Otherwise, I would like us to get started. So Councilwoman Tracy Park, I'm going to kick it over to you. Please go ahead and give us our introduction.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for kicking us off this evening, and to everyone in the Mar Vista community for making some time to be with us this evening. I'm really glad that we have an opportunity for a community check-in. It has obviously been a minute, although I've had the opportunity recently to be at the Mar Vista Community Council, and I've seen some of our friends at CPAB meetings with LAPD over the last several weeks. But these last 65 days have been the most devastating thing that we have ever seen on the West Side. This is the biggest disaster that we have ever experienced as a city, and I am told that between the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, this will be the largest disaster that FEMA has ever responded to anywhere in the country as well. And so obviously, this is an incident that has it's something that's going to leave scars not only on our community and on the hearts of so many of our residents, but on all of us. Thousands of our friends and neighbors in the Palisades had their lives upended. I think probably everybody in this call knows friends and neighbors who have lost things. And yet, in the wake of this unspeakable devastation, I have been incredibly proud at how all of the West Side has stepped up and responded to take care of our friends and neighbors, whether it was opening your homes to people who were displaced, whether it has been volunteering across any number of different efforts. I mean, some people from the community were even volunteering at my office, just answering phones and helping us with our donation center. Local restaurants from all over the West Side were stepping in to feed our first responders. And this has been an incredible effort across so many different levels. And it's just the honor of my lifetime to get to serve as your city council member for this incredible community here in Los Angeles. Obviously, the fire in the Palisades caused some disruptions to our normally scheduled programming. We certainly saw some of the impacts on our regular city services, as well as our usual Care Plus and other homeless intervention operations that we do. So over the last 6 weeks or so, we have been actively resuming our normal operations as we have been through a district-wide reboot in the aftermath. But we really appreciate your patience and your understanding over the last couple of months. So I'm really excited that we are kind of picking up where we left off with things. And a couple of things that I wanted to do before I get into the substance. Julio Torres is on the call. I wanted to take a special moment to introduce you all to Julio. Julio is one of 5 staff members who started in Council District 11 on Monday, January 6th. Julio is taking the helm of special projects. He is also working very closely with Caltrans and other state partners on a number of big projects around the district. Julio has a lot of experience working with council offices and has a lot of experience with our city services. So Julio, since I have you, you want to just say a quick hello and introduce yourself to our Mar Vista community?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Councilwoman, for that introduction. Just good evening. Hello, LAPD. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. Like the Councilwoman mentioned, I come here to a great team here in CD 11 from Council District 14 on the east side. Happy to be here. Like the Councilwoman has mentioned, we were literally thrown into the fire, as they said, but I'm glad to be here, and I've had wonderful interactions with residents so far here on the west side. And I'm a special projects specialist here now on the west side that's going to be handling some of our Caltrans issues. And I'm excited to just complete these beautiful projects that we have. We have a lot of wonderful things in the queue for this area as well. So just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome aboard. Thank you, Julio. We're really, really glad to have you with us. And of course, on our meeting tonight too, I just want to mention your trusty, incredible field deputy, Matt Howden. He is your go-to guy for all things Mar Vista on the ground. And of course, our wonderful, illustrious district director, Juan Fregoso, who oversees all of our field side operations for CD11. So with that, I want to take a minute and talk about some things that I know continue to be top of mind. So I want to start with homelessness. Obviously, this has been a critical issue since before I took office and continues to be an ongoing challenge. I am very, very pleased with some of the progress that we have made over the last 2 years. The dramatic reduction in homelessness that we see and feel all over the west side, particularly in Mar Vista, it's really noticeable. We have in just over 2 years housed well over 700 people who were formerly living in tents and vehicles across the west side. We have adopted new strategies and we've added new tools. One of those tools is our city's Safe Parks and Schools Ordinance, that's section 4118 of our municipal code. We have introduced, that is something that I have to introduce to the city council and get a majority vote on before we can roll those areas out. What the ordinance does is prevent tent encampments around certain sensitive use sites like parks, schools, daycares, and libraries. We have very, very quickly as a district gone from having none of those enforcement zones to about 50 now, including many in Mar Vista, which are all of your schools and the Mar Vista branch library. We also added the 405 freeway at Venice Boulevard based on public safety findings. You all will remember the encampment that was there at Globe for about a decade. That was a major, major joint operation between CD11, CD5, and Culver City. Was that last year already? It's been a while back now. So I'm going to come back to that and talk about the mural project in a few minutes. So that is one of the tools that we have implemented. And I just want to remind people about 4118. It doesn't prevent somebody from putting a tent up. It's not a wall around a particular place. But it is a legal tool that enables us to just tell that person that they are not able to camp that close. When we roll out a new 4118 zone, we typically do an operation if there are already people encamped there to give them an opportunity to come indoors. We always lead with offers of housing and services. But I just want folks to realize there are some limitations to what 4118 is and what it can do. I also want to make clear that 4118 does not govern vehicles or RVs. That is a separate issue that I will talk about in just a moment. We've also added some new resources, including the Circle team, which we have now expanded to include all of Mar Vista. The Circle team, among other things, often responds to low risk or low priority calls involving the homeless population. In part, we've expanded Circle team to take the pressure off of LAPD with the call volume. I think you all know that we are at historic lows in terms of staffing at LAPD, and those numbers continue to fall. I'm going to come back to LAPD in just a second there. But we think it's really important that just given the call load, we have some additional resources so that LAPD can mostly focus on the higher priority level things. We also added our Coastal Care Plus team, which enables us to focus that resource on certain coastal neighborhoods and free up our other Care Plus operations so that Mar Vista can actually see increased services. Last year, we did 41 operations in Mar Vista, including 33 Care Plus operations and 8 vehicle dwelling operations. One of the challenges, since we're talking about the vehicle operation, seems like a good time to circle back to it. At this point, the biggest challenge that we have with homelessness in CD11 are the vehicles and the RVs. This has proven to be a more challenging problem than the tent encampments, in part because of a lack of clear regulatory guidance. We do not have an ordinance similar to our Safe Schools and Parks ordinance that applies to vehicles. Now, I have introduced that legislation, but it also calls for an assessment of places where vehicles can park with access to resources and services, but in a way that, you know, protects our neighborhoods and in our around our sensitive use sites. The city is currently in the process of assessing locations across all 15 council districts, and that is what the holdup has been implementing that process. So it is in process, but it is taking a while. I recognize that. We are going to continue to keep pushing on it. Another piece of legislation that I introduced to try to address this governs van lords, and these are the folks who are renting out these dilapidated junker RVs without any regard for the health or safety of the inhabitants. So that ordinance is currently with the city attorney's office, and we are hoping that that will get back to us at some point in the near future. With respect to LAPD staffing levels, given that we just, the hard reality is we don't have enough police officers for all the places that we would love to have their presence. So in the interim, as we continue to try to restore and rebuild their ranks, which is a long-term process, we are looking for ways to supplement their work with technology. So you may remember that at the end of last year, I did a big announcement with Police Chief McDonnell and our District Attorney Nathan Hockman to announce that we are investing in automated license plate reader cameras. And we've just recently, thank you very much, LAPD, received your mapping of where you think those should go. And we have put those together and overlaid it with the feedback that we have received from our community. And we have the footprint of a very good plan and strategy. And that is going to be overlaid with our ongoing efforts to link our neighborhoods and communities through cameras as well. So that's something that can be not only a deterrent, but a source of evidence to the police in the event there is a crime, can also be used for situational awareness. We have also invested some of our discretionary funding into additional patrol overtime for LAPD. And we are working very closely with them to come up with a program for deploying those resources in a way that is going to net you all the biggest bang for your buck. And so I know Sergeant Cook is going to do an update for us on Mar Vista crime stats in just a few minutes. But back to homelessness, I'm just going to say anecdotally that, we have been so successful with our homeless interventions over the first 2 years that frankly, we are dealing with a remaining population of individuals, many of whom have very serious addiction and or mental health issues, or for one reason or excuse or another, they just simply don't want to go, and they are in fact service resistant. We just still currently lack an adequate suite of legal tools to force the issue very well with folks in that category. We have started to build out some of the things that we need. I'm very pleased that voters passed Prop 36, which will now open mandated pathways to recovery and care for people who may be suffering from addiction that find themselves caught in the criminal justice system. SB 43 is a state legislation that expands the definition of gravely disabled, that will also hopefully provide more pathways to care for people who need it. The county deferred implementing that for 2 years. We are now at 1 year into that, so we only have another year to go until the county is going to be required to implement that. And then in terms of the housing side of things, we, are going to continue to run into challenges addressing homelessness until we have adequate beds. But I also think it's important that we are making the investments in the right kinds of beds, which include sober and recovery-based housing. Right now, especially in light of the recent audit findings of really a lot of lack of oversight and management of the investments that we have made in LAHSA and homelessness over many years, I don't think anybody is surprised by those results. But it is certainly directing conversations that we are currently having inside City Hall about what the long-term plans, solutions, and fixes may be. There are a lot of different ideas on the table currently. You've probably seen already that the county is planning to downsize its relationship with LAHSA and bring a lot of that work in-house. I personally have some mixed feelings about it, but I think there are efficiencies that we could gain by looking at some similar approaches. Our team in CD11 continues to meet with our homeless service providers and LAHSA on a weekly basis. We continue to operate in partnership with LA-SAN and LAPD when we do our homeless operations. But I just wanted everybody to know that's where we are with things at the moment. I'm sure you all have questions about it, so I won't say more than that now. I already mentioned over time, on public safety, I did also want to mention that our park rangers have had a much more consistent presence, including at Mar Vista Park. This is additional resourcing that we have been pushing for a while, and so we are really excited about that. On a different but related public safety issue, I introduced a motion in City Council that has now been passed through Public Safety Committee, which actually calls for the fire department to inspect and repair all of the broken fire hydrants citywide. And I want to take a moment to thank and acknowledge the president of your Mar Vista Community Council, Drew Roosh, for the great idea on introducing that. We are in communication with the fire department currently to get their schedule for the testing and repairs here on the west side. So I am really excited about that. I think it's a step in the right direction. It just really unacceptable that in our city we have infrastructure that is in such dire need of repair. But that's pretty consistent with much of what we see around us, whether it is our park amenities, our sidewalks, the conditions of our roads, or overgrown trees that need to be better managed. But certainly in the wake of what has happened in the Pacific Palisades, the urgency and the prioritization of getting our water and public safety infrastructure operational really can't be understated. Also wanted to mention, for those of you that have had questions about or made inquiries on immigration services, CD11 has been partnering with the Salvadorian American Leadership and Educational Fund. They go by SALIF is what we hear them referred to pretty often. If you know of anyone who is in need of advice or services related to immigration status, you can connect with our office and we are happy to make those connections for you. Wanted to let you know that our our Mar Vista mural project at Venice Boulevard and the 405 is moving forward. Caltrans has the RFP, and I believe that the call for artists will be going out shortly. This is one of the pieces of improvements that we promised that we would be delivering after that encampment was cleared. On March 22nd, we are super stoked that Venice Fest is returning to Mar Vista. CD11 is going to have a table set up there throughout the event, and so we would love it if you would come out, stop by and say hi. And we are really, really looking forward to our return to whatever the new normal is here in CD11. So again, I just want to thank you all for being here, for your engagement, your continued collaboration and patience with my office. We are really, truly here to help and to resolve as many problems as we can. So we look forward to our continued partnership on all of these efforts as we move forward. And so with that, I think, Matt, next on our agenda is an update from Sergeant Cook and LAPD on Mar Vista crime stats.
Sure is. Thank you very
Right.
much, Councilwoman Park. I really appreciate that. LAPD, feel free to take away the floor with some crime stats from Mar Vista.
All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Mike Applegate. I'm one of two captains here at LAPD.
Hey, Captain Applegate, I'm so sorry. I couldn't tell that was you. You're a tiny little box on my window.
I totally understand. Glad I could make it with you this evening. And then obviously we have Sergeant Cook and Sergeant Lovick here with us tonight. And then you also see one of the other squares is a couple of our senior lead officers, Villery and Acosta, who work together to service the Mar Vista area. So I'll give you quickly some of the crime stats year to date. So this is only basically from January 1st until now. So, you know, we're dealing with relatively small numbers. And obviously, as we continue through the year, that is prone to change. But we have good news so far this year. So I'll give you kind of a little overview here. Our robberies are down 14%. Aggravated assaults are down 57%. Burglaries, which I know has been a major issue kind of throughout Pacific Division, but particularly in Mar Vista, burglaries are down 45.9% year to date compared to last year. GTA, stolen vehicles, down 51%. Our vehicle break-ins are up about 11%, and our thefts are up about 6%. But overall, what we call Part 1 crime, and I can go into that more if anybody needs more detail on that. Part 1 crime for the Mar Vista area year to date down 25.7%. So definitely off to a great start. Now, all of that said, if you're a victim of crime, these statistics don't really matter to you because, you know, the crime statistics where you live is 100%. And we certainly understand that. So this is not to say that our work is done, that we declare victory, anything like that. We continue our efforts with the resources that we have to try to provide great service and crime prevention, and then apprehend criminals and solve crimes on all of these cases. So your neighborhood is important to us. I say that specifically because, you know, because of the fire, we did have some deployment up to the Palisades fire in January, and some of our officers were deployed up there to assist with all of the efforts there. But then as we got further from the fire, our deployment continued to increase back here in the division, so that as of right now, we don't have any deployment at all at the Palisades fire. We have full deployment back in Pacific Division, and the resources that are used now at the Palisades fire are actually officers working on overtime on their days off. So Pacific officers have the option to work there on an overtime basis for some of the resources that are there, but it doesn't affect deployment here in Pacific Division. So all that to say, we are back here and fully invested in the things that are going on here. So I say all that to kind of, again, start the conversation because we share the same goal with you. We want your neighborhood to be crime-free, and we want to reduce crime in your neighborhood. And so we want to have conversations with you, continue to work with the council district and other city partners to continue to make that happen. So with that, I will stop for now, but obviously here to continue to take other questions as they come up. So thank you.
Thank you, Captain Applegate, Sergeant Lubbock, Sergeant Cook. Great to see you guys all there. Now that the screen's bigger since you're spotlighted, I can actually see you all. So thank you all. Great news on the numbers. We really appreciate the focus and the partnership. And I know we've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that we're all working on together. So we really, really appreciate that. Matt, seems like it would be a good time for us to stop talking and let's open it up to the community and see what is on their mind. And we might actually, for once, be able to get through all the questions.
I couldn't agree more, Councilman. Let's bring the community in. We were actually sent a series of questions before the meeting for folks who RSVP'd, so thank you for that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open it up to the folks who are here. And then once we finish with the folks who are here, I'll go through the questions that we received electronically, as they may be questions that those of us who are on the call also are interested in. So what you will need to do if you would like to speak is please press there should be an icon that says raise hand next to like a hand. If you would like to ask a question, please go ahead and hit that button and I can unmute you. That'll be the easiest way for us to go about doing that. Otherwise, if I don't see any hands, I will start with the very long list of questions that we received ahead of time electronically. Okay, so I don't see any questions from the attendees yet. So Councilman Park, I'm going to go to the questions that we received electronically.
Okay, but I want to note this is the first time ever in the history of Everdom that we've done a town hall and not had a question from the audience.
Oh, wait, here we go. We have one. We have one from Aaron. Okay. Aaron, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. So you should now be able to hit your microphone and go ahead, take it away.
Hi, Tracy Park and Matt. This is Aaron Vanek in Zone 6 of Mar Vista. Great to see you. Thank you very much for doing this and having you. I only bring this up, it isn't a question, it's just a little notice because it came up in the Neighborhood Council's Education Arts Committee meeting that we had on Tuesday, so just a couple days ago. And it was brought to our attention that the children's school at LMU, Loyola Marymount, has been the Children's Center, so LMU Children's Center, is slated to be revised and possibly closed. And it's an LMU thing. And so a number of the teachers there kind of came to our council looking for help on what to do on this, because it's going to close a child care facility that's going to greatly affect child care on the west side and the Palisades. So I'm just bringing it to your guys' attention that it happened. No one else raised their hand. So it was a big issue that LMU Children's Center is being revised, possibly closing one of the few child care centers, which is a problem because especially after the fire, a lot of schools and child care centers were, we lost them. So the ones that we have now are very needed on the west side. So I'm just kind of putting that on your radar. We could talk offline about it, Matt, and stuff like that. I was referring them to you, but I just wanted to put it on your attention now. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron, thank you for that. I'd actually heard of it. So Matt, let's definitely put a ping in that. If you're not already sped up on it, let's get sped up because Aaron, yes, you're absolutely right. The demands right now for childcare are significant. And, one of the impacts that we're seeing in a lot of communities in CD11 is, we're absorbing families from Palisades, and that has impacts on schools and childcare and a lot of our existing resources. So thank you for that. It's a great point. Let me see what info we can get. Aaron, I assume you and Matt have each other's contact info. You guys can, Matt can follow up with you on that.
Yes, I'd be very happy to follow up with you, Aaron, on that. Let's plan to talk at the latest next week. We have Dennis who has a question as well. I'm going to allow you to talk. Okay, Dennis, go ahead and hit your microphone button to unmute yourself. Good evening. It's nice to see you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You can. Hi, Dennis.
Okay, hi. I'll try to condense my thoughts. There, it seems that many of the things that are quality of life issues don't really change. They're more or less complaint driven, like illegally dumped stuff, potholes, sidewalks, trees that are falling over, and the list goes on. And I don't know if it's worth getting some kind of a campaign together to educate people, to educate renters on how they can request these things, or um, if there is money in the budget for somebody part-time to, uh, for instance, just drive around Mar Vista. I mean, when I go around Mar Vista, I see furniture and potholes and trees that have fallen over. And I mean, I'm driving by, I can't catch an address. Um, could somebody spend couple of hours? They would fill that time, end to end, and record some of these things and at least get them in the pipeline.
Dennis, it's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. Yeah, yes, I wish we just had, I don't know, 4 or 5 cars or utility trucks that were just constantly on a roving patrol, picking up garbage and fixing things as they spotted issues on the ground. We have some limited operations for that. And, Juan or Matt, I'll leave it to you to describe the details of how our beautification team works and kind of where we assign them. That's really sort of, I hear what you're saying about it being complaint driven. It's on demand work. But we can deploy it in pretty real time if we become aware of a problem. And just so you know, me as your council member, I'm constantly out patrolling the district. I'm always looking at things, and I am one to pull over with a garbage bag and clean up a mess myself, which actually happens pretty often. Your field deputies and our other beautification and clean team members do things like that. I don't know that we have funding in the budget right now to build out more of a program for that. Since you mentioned quality of life stuff, one of the things that we are working on with LAPD with use of our overtime funding that we're providing them focuses on some quality of life related enforcement strategies that can help with things like littering, vandalism, broken windows, that kind of stuff. So that's what I would have to say about that, but it raises the question of the budget and city services. And you guys know me well enough probably by now to know I'm not really one to sugarcoat things, and there is nothing to sugarcoat when it comes to the budget currently. We just got our financial status report from the CAO's office. It's bleak. Things, it's bleak. I don't know what else to say. We are under collecting sales taxes, business taxes, TOT, which is our hotel and tourism. ULA continues to be under collected. All of that is indicative of a softening business market, real estate market. Those are revenue generators for the city. All of that continues to be down. Spending continues to be high, driven by just demand for city services, personnel costs. We have to front load the costs for disaster recovery, which will eventually, hopefully, get mostly paid back by FEMA. But we are going to have to front load that out of what is already a budget where we are looking at $1 billion of deficit. So this is, if you've been following along last year, you probably heard that, in my updates that things were pretty dire. We were able to maintain minimum levels of service in last year's budget. We're going to try to do that again. There are some budgeting strategies that are being floated currently, including bringing in some outside eyes and strategic consulting to right-size the budget, making it multi-year, which will help us plan better for some of those capital improvements, the things that you're talking about, for example, the streets and the sidewalks, the tree trimming, things like that. Right now, trying to do this on a 12-month cycle, if you can't complete the project in those 12 months, and there's a whole bunch of bureaucratic and staffing reasons why oftentimes things take longer than that. then you're back to square one the next year, and that's not great for continuity or long-term investments. And so looking at a multi-year budget is a conversation that we're having as we head into this new fiscal year. But I don't foresee us adding new services or expanding anything that we have for the foreseeable future. Sorry to say it, Dennis, but not looking good.
And just to piggyback off of that, Councilwoman, Dennis, for the beautification team, they do help us out a lot with minor trash pickup, weed abatement, palm frond clearing. And as the councilwoman said, it really is kind of an on-demand service. It's one of the few on-demand services we actually have in the city right now that works really, really well. What you really need to do in terms of how to make use of that is all I really need is an address. That's it. And Dennis, I do think you have my work cell phone number now, so you can always even just text me if you're on the road. Say, hey, driving by Sawtell and Palms, and I noticed that trash can has fallen over and there's trash in the street. Can we get that cleaned up? Those are the kind of things that I'd be very happy to assist you with. And sometimes that can go a little bit quicker than a 311 request. You can always put a 311 in for that. But our beautification team, as we've been saying, is more of an on-demand service, which usually means that the turnaround time is a little bit quicker. Awesome. So I don't see any more hands up at the moment, but I do have a question from Christopher. So I'm going to go ahead and read this off. Christopher has said, a project to put 2 Welcome to Mar Vista median signs in the Venice Boulevard median eastbound at Redwood and westbound at Bledsoe was first initiated in 2009. There was funding available in the then council member's office and designs approved by the MVCC, that's the Mar Vista Community Council. Would you consider reviving that effort as a separate extension of the Venice at Globe and Tuller mural project?
Yeah, I would absolutely consider it. Not familiar with the 2009 effort, but let's unearth it. Don't know what funding sources were identified back then, but I can almost guarantee you that by now they've been swept or reallocated, but don't despair. We may be able to do some partnering up with some other organizations or look at some other resources. But yeah, I absolutely would be open to that. I have long been of the opinion that you guys really need a town identity for Mar Vista. And I think the welcome signage and the new mural is a step in the right direction. But I have a lot of big visions for things that I would love to be able to do along Venice Boulevard in your business district to really improve that experience for people and make it a destination in and of itself. Because you guys have got some incredible gems over there. One of which, and my favorite thing to do in LA on Sunday is your farmers market. You guys, and I like all farmers markets, but you guys definitely have the best one on the west side. So there's, I think, a lot of ways that we need to just sort of create and brand you guys an identity in downtown Mar Vista.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Councilwoman, because the other field deputies who I've had come with me to our farmers market in Mar Vista have basically said, you guys have the best one. So, and we go to all of them, as you know. So that's some high praise right there.
Yeah, and I know there's conflict every now and then. It puts some inconvenience on the neighbors, and some people like the live music. I personally love it. Other people, they hate fun. And so,
and on that note,
bound to happen.
We're working with the coordinators of the Mar Vista farmers market on the live music, because I know that was an issue.
We want to be respectful about it and
100%.
Make sure that everybody can coexist in harmony. So, but there's so many great things right there to offer. And so I love that we've got this sort of gateway project coming in, and I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities for us there.
Absolutely.
So yes, we'll definitely consider it.
Absolutely. Awesome. So thank you for that, Chris. Councilwoman, I'm now going to read off some questions from that were sent in a little bit earlier. And this first one is actually more, I think, of an LAPD question for our LAPD partners. It says, it's from Jennifer, and she says, how is the city handling the continued home burglaries and the never-ending encampments by Barrington, Gateway, and Sawtell? This is kind of as it goes underneath the 10. Right where we border on West LA. So, Councilwoman, if you were LAPD could take that one, I would really appreciate it.
Well, I know what they're talking about. I know what the problem is. I know where the problem is, and I know who the problem is. And that's that category of folks that we are really, really running into some challenges with. I know that we are working on some additional 4118 based on public safety findings in that area. But, you know, I think certainly with what happened with the assault on that woman in West LA, who I have not had an opportunity to meet, it's not someone that I know. It is something that is extremely concerning and has a lot of neighbors on edge. And I see a lot of that sort of escalating behavior. And so one of the things that, you know, we have worked with LAPD and are focusing with them on are some targeted intervention strategies, particularly as it relates to trafficking or narcotics, and really trying to get at some of these other issues. So LAPD, if you have anything else you want to add and chime in there.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to the burglary issue because I know that that has been an ongoing conversation in Mar Vista and then other parts of our patrol area as well. So the quick overview is this. Probably everybody has heard of these, oftentimes referred to as crew burglaries. And the reason for that is because this is not one person walking down the street who happens to see your garage open and then goes in and steals a bike. This is multiple suspects working in multiple cars and being very strategic and carefully planning their burglaries. They oftentimes will do surveillance beforehand to identify a pattern of behavior. You know, somebody comes home at 5 o'clock, they leave at 6 o'clock to go to the gym. You know, they understand those patterns of how people typically, go through their day. And then what we see is multiple suspects completely covered. They go into the backyard. They oftentimes smash a rear glass, sliding glass door. We have other suspects who sometimes will scale up to a second-story balcony, where oftentimes there may not be security alarms, like on a French doors on the balcony or something like that. They will make entry and then they target high-end jewelry, watches, high-end purses, things that are very high value, but then also not trackable, right? They're not taking electronics. They're not taking phones and laptops and iPads and things like that that can be tracked electronically. They're taking things that oftentimes can be easily traded for cash, but are not traceable. This is not unique to any one neighborhood. This is Pacific Division, West LA. This is Beverly Hills, Culver City. This is all over Southern California and the general area. Because of that, what that means is that our detectives work with all of their partners in those places. So our detectives regularly have calls every single week. We have a call every single day, but they have a call specifically to burglaries to make sure that they're sharing all of the information every single week. And they have calls with Beverly Hills, Culver City, sheriffs, and they share all of that information because what we find is there may be an arrest in a different jurisdiction and there's property or there's connections from those cases that tie back to multiple other cases. And so what we can find is if you can make a few strategic arrests, you can have an outsized impact on that problem. I just shared some of those crime stats related to burglaries, and there is some good news there. And I think what that shows is there have been some good strategic arrests. One that I'll highlight was that back on February 13th, our partnering division, our neighboring division in West LA had a great arrest of 3 males, and they were able to tie them to multiple burglaries that occurred Pacific Division, West LA, and other parts of the city, including Wilshire as well. And again, you know, these suspects are prolific. So if we can target and make the right arrests, we can make a significant dent in that crime problem. So those efforts are ongoing. Simply because you arrest one crew doesn't mean the problem goes away. But we have made some headway there, and that's good news. So I'll leave it with that if there's any other questions.
Great job, LAPD. That's what we like to hear. We
Yes.
love it. More of that.
And I think this is just another reason that we're grateful for Prop 36, because hopefully, you know, some of these repeat offenders will be able to enforce in that much greater capacity. Okay,
Well,
cool.
Chime in real quick.
Well, and with that attempted assault, that attempted rape in West LA the other day, I mean, that guy had a rap sheet that makes him the poster child for Prop 36.
Let's hand it over to Officer Villery, Senior Lead Officer Villery. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, how you doing? Senior Lead Officer Villery is my partner, Senior Lead Officer Costa. Just to piggyback off of the captain, one of the things my partner and I, we both offer for our community and our constituents is we do a community walk. And what that does is we put ourselves in the mind of a criminal, and we do give some helpful insight tips to help our community help to give them preventative measures to be from becoming victimized. We do walk the block. We look at surveillance cameras or lack thereof, high brush. We do tell people not to leave ladders in plain view because that is easy access for second level of victims' homes, which it happened in one of my areas after I gave the speech, and he still did it, and he became victimized.
Yeah, just we ask the constituents just email us and we'll set up a time. Preferably, late afternoon or even we do work weekends sometimes, so maybe like a Sunday morning. I have one coming up at the end of next month. After a successful meeting in CD5, had 2 people reach out on 2 separate blocks, and now we're going to do 2 walks on a Sunday. And again, like my partner said, just brings everybody out, gets people to meet their neighbors. Sometimes we have neighbors that living 2 and 3 doors away that have never met, and I think it's important to build that cohesion in the neighborhood. And then we just walk the block and look for deficiencies, like my partner said, and we try to have some fun with it too.
Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
know the community really appreciates the presence and that extra touch and your effort paying attention to their particular needs and layout and challenges. Thank you for that.
And just so you everyone is aware on the call, if you need help getting in touch with LAPD for any of these walks, or perhaps if you're interested in establishing a neighborhood watch, please get in touch with me and I can help facilitate those connections for you. Cool. So we're going to move on to our next questions. Let me just check our participant list to see if we have a hand. I don't see a hand, so we'll go to our next one on the list.
Hey, can I add real quick?
Sure.
The block captains and being involved. We had a lot of questions the other night about, well, I don't want to take on the responsibility of being a block captain, or I'm not sure what to do. Really, it's just disseminating information. We send out crime alerts usually on the weekly basis. All we ask them to do is forward it to their neighbors. That's pretty much the idea of a block captain. And then they will act as liaison between their block and us for things that they may hear on Nextdoor or Citizen app, just to verify what's happening. So it's not a big lift to be a block captain.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, guys. We really, really appreciate that. What a valuable resource.
Really incredible. Okay. Thank you for doing that. But since we just mentioned Nextdoor, can I just mention Nextdoor real quick? Guys, don't report crime on Nextdoor. Report crime to the police. I see a lot of that across the district. I will just say, I know there are sometimes challenges and delays, especially when it's non-emergency stuff. But if you don't report the crime and we don't have a record of that, it is way harder to identify the trends and hotspots. And for me as your council member, when I go in and lobby and push for more police resources in our neighborhoods and communities, it helps when I have actual crime stats that reflect real numbers. And so it drives me crazy when I see people, reporting things on Nextdoor that LAPD have not been reported to LAPD. So I know it can be a challenge. You can do a lot of that online for a lot of types of crimes. And if it's easier for anyone, you can swing by Pacific Division and do it in person at the station on Culver Boulevard too.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. So there's a couple of questions in here that are very, very similar. I think we did touch on this briefly, but maybe we can touch on it just in a little bit greater detail. I have a question from Bert and one from Dawn, and they're both very similar. Bert says, how do we get accountability for homelessness? We need to spend our dollars efficiently. And Dawn is saying, what is being done about the LAHSA situation?
Both great questions. So obviously we have for the last 20 years since LAHSA was established as the result of a lawsuit between the city and the county because they couldn't figure out how to jointly navigate through the homeless problem that we had at that time. There have been ongoing challenges. We have thrown billions of dollars at it, many billions of dollars at it in 20 years. And the problem has basically gotten worse year after year. And that raises a lot of policy concerns and questions, not only about the governance structure, but the nature of the programming and services that we are providing with that money. I am a big believer in recovery-based programming, and housing. I think we don't solve the problem by only focusing on, producing permanent supportive housing. I don't think that's enough for affordable housing. We have to have the right kinds of beds and housing to meet the needs of the population that we are trying to serve. So, I'm not a big proponent of continuing to double down on policies that don't bake in accountability. One of the very first things that we did as a council office was introduce a motion calling for key performance indicators in all of our service provider contracts. We have started to see that roll out over the last couple of years, but that's not going to solve for what has been decades of mismanagement and spending. So, among other things, what can we do to deal with it? Well, we can downsize our relationship with and dependence on LAHSA. And that is something that I have always been a big proponent of. And I certainly think right now is the time to be having that discussion. Over the last couple of years, we've had new leadership in the city and at LAHSA. And I wanted to be respectful and give some time to see if we could sort out some of these challenges. But I'm not, and by the way, I think we have, as a council office, in terms of how we program with LAHSA, have done a really, really good job with it. But systemically, among other things that we consider are creating our own city department of homelessness or homeless coordination. That is a pending motion that is before us currently. I think another strategy is to take that a step further and actually consider what would it take to dissolve the JPA. What would it take for the city of Los Angeles to set up its own continuum of care so that we could have more direct control or spending over the resources that we're paying for? I have always been a big proponent of city of Los Angeles getting off county resources when it comes to mental health and potentially considering our own department for that as well. City of Pasadena and Long Beach have both done it, and that local control seems to be a little bit more efficient to me. So that is the range of things that are under consideration currently. But I think now is the time to start having this discussion. This problem is not going to get better if we just keep doing what we've been doing, which hasn't worked. So I think now is the moment.
Thank you very much for that, Councilwoman. Lastly, before I wrap us up for the evening, because Councilwoman, I know we have to get you to your next appointment. I just wanted to announce this out loud. Christopher put another question in the chat asking for the address of LAPD's Pacific Division. That is going to be 12312 Culver Boulevard. Of course, that's Los Angeles, and it's 90066. So again, that's going to be 12312 Culver Boulevard in LA, 90066. And if you're familiar with the area of Delray, it's right where Centinela and Culver Boulevard intersect. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, taking some time out of their busy schedules to make this happen. I want to thank our Councilman, Tracy Park. I want to thank our partners at LAPD, our internal team, Juan Fregoso, our wonderful district director, Julio Torres, who is now at the Parks Needs Assessment. So he had to jump off as well. But it's honestly a pleasure to work with such wonderful individuals. I know there's a lot of work to do, but I think there's a lot of things to feel good about as well. And it's important that we take time to feel good about the things we can feel good about, while also understanding there's a lot of work left to be done.
There is. Matt, thank you for that. And I'll just say good night to everyone. As always, LAPD, thank you for being a continued friend and partner in everything that you do every day across Pacific Division and all of the West Side. We appreciate you so much, and to all of the members of our community. Feel free to reach out to Team CD11. We are here to help in all the ways that we can. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll see you soon.